Matthew 9:36 through 38. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them, because they were weary and scattered, like sheep having no shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest truly is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." Just a quick question for our saints out there. Have you asked the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers today? What are you waiting for? Do it now. Welcome back to Harvest Radio. Do not forget to visit us at www.jasperharvest.com. It's where you can contact either one of our hosts, check out upcoming events, make prayer requests for unsaved loved ones, learn more about sharing your faith, and to request evangelism training for yourself, family, or even your church. Now let's go to our regularly scheduled broadcast, hosted by Franklin Reeves and Richard Nichols. Two nobodies trying to help other nobodies. Tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody.
Joining us. He won't be in the studio, but he will be on the radio. His name is Mark Cahill. You may know him if you follow Auburn basketball, say about the time Charles Barkley went in, because he used to play with Charles Barkley. He also speaks at Joshua conferences, and he speaks for the Summit Ministries. He was a teacher, taught Bible in a Christian high school for a few years before the Lord called him completely out of that type of employment. And since then, he's been just out witnessing and sharing his faith. Some of the people he shared with would be, Tiger Woods. He shared with, of course, Charles Barkley, his brother, Darryl Barkley, which is an interesting story there with Darryl. And who else has he shared with?
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, that's a big name in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And but he hasn't stuck with just the basketball. Like I said, he spoke to Tiger Woods, and he's also shared the gospel with Geraldo, and that's pretty interesting. And kind of threw Geraldo for a loop when he started sharing the gospel with him, because I think that was the last thing he was expecting. But even in one message I was listening to, as a recorded message, Jeff Foxworthy, you might be a redneck if, called him and told him he has just finished reading his book. He had finished a comedy club or comedy whatever appearance, and he had 4 or 5 more chapters to go. So about 2:30 in the morning, he goes back to his hotel and starts reading the rest of Mark's book. And he calls Mark and says, I want to get a case of these, and would you pray for my boldness? Because he'd been a Christian for a couple of years at that time, and he just wanted more boldness. So we're going to bring Mark Cahill in here, hopefully to help us be a little more bolder in sharing our faith. And let's take a little break. And this is, if Ed wouldn't mind playing one of our little skits there.
We're having a technical difficulty, but I'll have that in just a moment.
Okay, no problem. Then we'll go on to that for a minute. The other thing we want to talk about is the Way of the Master training course. We started out here last Tuesday. Anybody that would like to take the training, just let us know, and we'll try and get you set up for the next time we start it.
And how can they get in touch with us, Franklin?
Well, a couple different ways. One way, they can go to our website, www.jasperharvest.com, and click on the little thing that says Way of the Master Training Course. Sign up. Another way is they can call us at home, 205-808-5490. That's 205-808-5490. And they can leave a message if we're not there. That's no problem, and we'll get back with them. Another way is they can send it by mail. Just let us know they want to do it. Our mailing address is 701 Park Lane, Fultondale, Alabama, 35068. And that's 701 Park Lane, Fultondale, Alabama, 35068. And just want to go off tangent just a little bit. One of the things that I try and do when I give a phone number or an address, I like to slow down a little bit. And it just reminds me, though, a lot of people usually speed up. I don't know why. But I remember a message one day I got when I was at work from somebody in another state, and they wanted help on something. And they had that southern drawl, and it went kind of like this. Hey, this is Billy Bob. I just need you to give me a call back. My phone number is 205. And I'm like, you can't give the number at the same speed? Come on. I understand the people that talk fast have a hard time slowing down, but the people that talk slow speed up when they give their phone numbers. I'm not really sure why that is, but I try and keep people in mind when you leave those messages that they may not hear as fast as you talk, so you might need to slow it down just a little bit. And I think we're ready for one of our skits.
The Bible. And I started looking at every single name that put those quotes in there, and all of a sudden something hit me. Out of every single person who said their favorite quote was from the Bible, okay? Do you know what not one of those persons did with me one time in high school? What did you never do with me? Not one time did one person in high school ever witness to me, ever share Jesus Christ with me. Why didn't you do that?
And that was Mark Cahill. And I guess in that particular message he was talking, he was just asking people, why don't you share the gospel with people in high school? He's asking the people that he went to high school with, why didn't he share with me? He didn't come to know the Lord till he was 25 at college. An Auburn football player, and I think 2 other FCA, that's the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, members began sharing the gospel with him. But nobody in high school ever did. And but he did make a decision there that he wasn't going to let anybody that he comes in contact with, as far as in a circle of influence, friends and things like that, not know who the Lord is and what they must do to be right with him. And in fact, he's ended up getting his high school yearbook out, and he just ended up sending his book, ended up sending gospel tracts and letters to every single person in his graduating class.
If I'm not mistaken, he said that he was going to send approximately 1,000 pieces of literature to each person that he went to high school with, or at least graduated with. And
I think he might have meant to the people he graduated with that he was going to send 1,000, and each one was going to get something. I don't think he meant 1,000 each person. If he did, though, that's commitment there. But or submitment, as I like to think of it, surrendering. Now, on the Way of the Master basic training course, and I wonder if you'd read their little promo here. Yeah.
Based on the award-winning TV series The Way of the Master by Kirk Cameron and Ray Comfort, the basic training course is specially formatted to train believers in a group setting to simply and confidently share the gospel with friends, family, and strangers. This 8-week course will teach you to overcome your fears by using a proven, powerfully effective way to make the gospel make sense. You won't be at a loss for words. You don't need to be an expert in apologetics. Instead, you'll learn the forgotten biblical principle by bypassing the intellect, the place of argument, and speaking directly to the conscience, the place of knowledge of right and wrong, the way that Jesus did. Using a captivating teaching style, Kirk and Ray not only tell you how to witness, they show you through fascinating on-the-street conversations with gang members, atheists, cult members, intellectuals, on the beach, in parks, on planes, in malls. Weekly homework assignments will gradually coax you step by step out of your comfort zone to reach your loved ones for Christ. You will be inspired and motivated as you learn, watch, and then do. Like countless others, you will be amazed at how using this biblical method will transform your life and the lives of others.
Now, we just finished our first week. What did you think of the first week?
Well, I thought it was great. It's an introduction into what we're going to be doing. It's a video series as well as a book study. So we go through just a couple of pages in the book, just talking about what this week's lesson is about. And then we watch the video series, and this particular week was a clip from their TV show, Way of the Master, which is so helpful. And it's also great because you get to see other people that have been doing this for a long time, do it. And you see that it can be done. And even though they've been doing it for a very long time, for years and years and decades, it encourages you because you may be new at it. I'm new at it. You're new at it. The folks that are in our group are new at it. But they encourage you, Ray and Kirk encourage you that you too can do it. You may not do it as great as they do it, but you will be able to do it. You will be able to share the gospel.
Now, have you ever put these principles into play, sharing the gospel?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us one of those times?
Sure. I've done it. Actually, I mastered giving out tracts a while now, but have just recently overcome the fear of being able to share the gospel. And we had a couple of servicemen come to the house. And the first one, my little boy was awake, and so he was running around the house, and we're just talking with the gentleman and I were talking. He's very friendly, very cordial, and as soon as I saw that he was at the door, God just placed it on my heart, Ginger, share the gospel. And I was kind of excited. I didn't really, sometimes we argue with God. No, I don't want to. No, not now, not here. What's he going to think? And I didn't really argue with God. I was kind of excited about it because I knew this was a perfect opportunity. I knew this was because I had been asking for God to help me overcome my fear of man, to make me more afraid of God and disobedience than being afraid of man and fear of rejection. So it was kind of exciting that I knew that's what he was doing. So the gentleman is going about his work, and he finished and came and had me sign the little ticket, whatever, when he was done. And I was sitting in the living room, and just the whole time he was working, I just was praying, okay, God, if you really want me to do this, give me the courage, give me the strength, give me the words. I want to do this. I want to be obedient, but I cannot do it without you. And I think that's so important. You have to start every gospel presentation with prayer, because if you don't, you're doing it in your own strength, and you're not going to accomplish anything.
That's true.
So I was praying for that, and then as Chris, I believe, was giving me the ticket to sign, I said, hey, can I ask you a question? This is just something my husband and I like to ask folks. And he said, well, sure. Again, very friendly, very polite gentleman. And I said, would you consider yourself to be a good person? And he's like, well, yeah. I said, well, can I ask you a few questions to see if that's true? And he said, well, sure. I said, well, great. Do you mind having a seat? And I was a little nervous as I started because I had never done it before. I had never used the law in sharing the gospel. And I had only shared the gospel one other time prior to that, using a different method, using the evangelism explosion method. So I was a little nervous about it, but I knew that I had heard it enough, I had practiced it enough, I had seen it enough that I could at least stumble through. And more importantly, I knew that God could give me the words I needed to say as I was saying them. Even though I didn't know what I was saying, God could tell me what to say. So I muddled through it as best I could, but I do have to say the funniest part of that story. While this gentleman is doing his work around the house, my loving husband came home, and you had walked in and met the guy, and then you had walked out of the living room and gone to the back of the house, and I figured you're just doing your housework, going about things that you have to do. And then I'm sitting down sharing the gospel with the gentleman, and you walk in, and the look on your face, you were stunned. And then I saw the tract that was in your hand, and I said, he was going to do this himself, and I beat him to it. And you came
yes,
in and you sat down, and you were, it was just really funny to see your face, because I guess you weren't expecting me to do that, because I had never done it before, so it was as much a shock for you as it was for me. But Chris, this gentleman, was he answered the questions and went through the good person test. And, he was a believer, and he, answered the questions. But you kind of picked up where maybe I was stumbling a little bit because I had not done it before. But you were there with me to just emphasize certain points, reading the first couple of chapters of John and putting on Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and the fact is, you didn't beat me to it, because what I was going to do was just give him a tract. He came in, I said, hold on a second. I was going to give him a tract. So I was going to get not the crumpled $1 million that's in your desk drawer, but I was going to get a fresh $1 million bill or something to give to him. And then, of course, I come back around the corner and I hear, I guess that'd make me a liar. I'm like, okay, I'm going to disappear for a few seconds because I don't want to interrupt them now. And she is sharing the gospel, because as soon as he said, I guess that makes me a liar, I knew what you were doing. And that was just really interesting, because I didn't expect it, because I know I'd been encouraging to share your faith, and I'm sure when I first started sharing the gospel, I probably made you sick, too, of hearing all the time. And if you probably heard one more time, Ray said this, or, we ought to do this, you probably would have shot me. But it was really funny seeing you do that. And then it wasn't 2 days later, you had decided, another serviceman came by. We had I think one was for the air conditioning to pre-check it. The other one was for the pest control service, which, folks, come on. You can go out into the world and preach the gospel, or you can let God bring people to you sometimes too. Take advantage of them when God brings them to you. Not take advantage of them, but take advantage of the opportunity He brings you. But you tell the guy to come back in. You want to talk to him afterwards. Mm-hmm. And he's probably thinking the whole time, oh, great, I'm in trouble. They're going to fire us, what? But he comes back in, and I do have to say, I kind of threw you for a loop, because I brought something up to you that day, a major kind of decision thing we need to think about, and then you were no longer in the mood. And I felt bad about that. I'm like, she was going to share the gospel, and now I put her in but I did help you out. I helped you reconnect with the gospel sharing, because when the guy came in, I said, hey, come here. My wife wanted to share the gospel with you. Here you go, honey, didn't you? And that put you right back in the saddle.
Well, and that was an awkward thing, because with the first guy, he had me sign the service ticket after he was done. But with this second guy, and this is how they always do it, because they don't come back into the house unless you request them to. Mm-hmm. So he knocks on the door and says, hey, I'm here. Any problems? No. Okay, great. Sign this. I'm done. I'll leave when I'm done. Have a good day. So there was no need for him to come back in the house. So I'm signing my little ticket. And I said, hey, James, when you get done, would you come back in for a minute? I need to talk to you. So like you said, he's probably in his mind going, what is she going to say? Oh, my goodness, is she going to hit on me? What is she going to say? What is she going to do? What? I'm sure that's a little I can't think of the word. It's just uncomfortable for them to be thinking about all the possible scenarios that could play out when something like that is said. It's like when your boss says, come in my office, you automatically start going to the bad things. What have I done? What have I gotten caught at? Yeah,
the last thing in your mind is, I'm going to get a promotion. It's
same thing with your kids. Hey, y'all, come here. What'd we do? What'd you do? Did you tell on me? So I'm sure it was the same thing with this guy.
And I shared with somebody how I got you back into sharing the gospel with them, and they looked at me like, did you sleep in the doghouse that night? I said, no, the good thing about sharing the gospel is it kind of gets rid of all the anger you got. So
yeah, it does.
So she couldn't be angry with me after she was sharing the Lord with somebody else, reminding herself how much she had been forgiven. But it worked out for the best, because that was your preparation for the upcoming Saturday.
Right. And I needed that. I needed that boldness to go about the day, which was Doodah Day, which was, I think...
Yeah, we weren't here, and y'all figured that out if you listen, I'm sure. And just on that note, if you do listen and you get any encouragement from us or discouragement from us, if you just write to us at 701 Park Lane, Fultondale, Alabama, 35068, and let us know. If we encouraged you, we want to know. If we've discouraged you in some way, we want to know too, because, a brother should go to another brother if they've been wronged. And I actually relish people that come to me. Now, I prefer the person that I offend come and not come through a third party or a fourth party, because, I'm sorry, the Lord told us to go to each other. But, I don't know. I'll even take it from a third party. Okay. So what happened Saturday? We weren't here, of course.
Right. And
y'all got to listen how to find God's will for your life, which was really touching and moving to me. And
last Saturday was Doodah Day. It's an annual event in Birmingham that benefits the Humane Society and the local shelters. I would not call it a fundraiser, but it's to help adopt all the animals that they have. And it is a day to see things you've never seen. You think dogs and cats, how unusual could that be? Well, friends, let me tell you, there is more breeds of dogs out there than you could ever possibly imagine. And even the same breed can be different colors. They could be cut differently. They have these cute little outfits that they put on their animals. And my goodness, we saw some dogs that were as tall as I am. We saw some dogs.
Poodles. I mean, I was sitting there thinking, the poodles, did they go through the little gamma radiation machine or something? These poodles were huge.
The Incredible Hulk poodles. And then there were some dogs that my 2-year-old could have picked up and put in his pocket.
I think he tried too.
And then there's always the handful of folks that like to bring the exotic, unusual animals. Saw one family of ferrets, one snake, pretty big snake. I did not get near her. I don't know if it was the same person with the birds on their shoulders, but we saw birds a couple of different times.
Yeah.
So it's mainly dogs. a few cats, and even, like I said, the exotic animals. But it's a free event. It's in Birmingham at 2 different parks. It starts with the parade, and then it's between the 2 parks on Highland Avenue on the south side of Birmingham. And it is just a ton of people walking everywhere. They have pizza and ice cream and music, and all the news folks are there. And I heard, I think Friday morning, they were just talking about the event last year, and so they had about 10,000 people there.
Well, you were right the first time. They do the proceeds that they make from sales and stuff. They do make some money off of that, and it does go. They picked 2 charities. This year was the Greater Birmingham Humane Society, and then some other little charity.
So it's just a free event, and they have the.
Why were we there?
We were there because it was a free event, because it's open to everybody. And as Mark Cahill has said in his book, The One Thing You Can't Do in Heaven, he has a quote that if people are breathing, they need Jesus. Well, there was a lot of people at Doodah Day that were breathing, and that meant they need Jesus. So you and I and Richard, who's usually here with you, and his lovely wife, and our 2 kids, well, 3 kids actually, we all headed down to Doodah Day after prayer, a lot of prayer, went down and spent probably about 3 or 4 hours just walking around passing out tracts. And the neat thing about it, and I think probably my favorite part of the day, is seeing our 8-year-old, Matthew, my 8-year-old stepson, who is shy, does not do change very well, does not easily go up and talk to strangers under normal circumstances, go up and pass out tracts.
I got a picture of him. I was sitting with him, and there was a lady sitting next to us, had some dogs, and he reached for $1 million bill, so I took the camera, and I was just holding it kind of inconspicuously, pointing that general direction. And I got a picture of him handing a $1 million bill, which has a gospel message on the back to a lady. And now, when everything's said and done, he figures he gave 40 tracts out that day. My little 8-year-old gave out 40 tracts that day. And the night before, and we'll talk about that too, but the night before he gave out 20 tracts at another thing we went to. So he was really moving forward.
So the preparation that Franklin mentioned that I needed for that day was, again, earlier in the week, having shared the gospel for the first 2 times, using this particular method of using the law. So that day, that morning, Saturday, we had set up goals for ourselves. What did we want to accomplish that day? And I had a goal of sharing the gospel. I figured if I could do it once, just get over that initial hurdle of sharing it once, that would help me overcome my fear of man enough to be able to do it a second or even a third time. And throughout the day, I was slightly discouraged that I had not done it, just because there were so many people milling about. And so you had stood up, and you were going to open air preach, and the ice cream man was about a block away, and we're all just kind of praying that he goes somewhere else. And we ended up getting a good crowd for you, and you did a great job, good message, good crowd. And as we're all walking away, and that was the last thing we did because it was late.
No, with the ice cream man, no, that came after the ice cream man incident. I couldn't draw a crowd there; it didn't work.
So I had gone up and was just going to give a tract to the ice cream man, and he was on the telephone. And I walked up and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your phone call." He goes, "No, that's all right. Do it. Interrupt. Come on." And I gave it to him. And I usually just give out a tract, say, it's a gospel tract, read the back, ask yourself the $1 million question, something to that effect. But again, God said, ask him if anybody's ever asked him the $1 million question. And again, he's on his cell phone. He's on making a phone call. And I said, hey, and he's looking at it going, hey, wow, this is really cool. Is this a Bible tract? I said, you know what it is? Has anybody ever asked you the $1 million question? He's like, no. And he's real excited. So I was not at all infringing on him, interfering in his phone call. I was not invading his space. I was not offending or upsetting him. It was very conversational. I was terrified because I had never done it. Well, I shouldn't say that. I had done it, but not out like that. There was tons of people. What if people get in line behind me to get ice cream and I'm trying to share the gospel with him? What if he gets mad at me? What if, he's not a believer? And, what if, and I'm just all these what ifs. And he gave the answers to give me the impression that he was a believer, because he did not say that he asked Jesus into his heart when he was 8. he said that he had, given his life to the Lord, had given his heart to the Lord. So he said things to give me the impression that he was a believer. But he sounded very appreciative that I had done that. And he was very excited to have that in his hand because he kept looking at it. So it was great. And I just was so thankful that I had had the opportunity earlier in the week to share the gospel with those two servicemen at the house. Because that was, like I said, that was the last thing we had done, and we started heading out after that.
Well, you said he seemed appreciative. And one thing I've come to realize, and it seems, Jesus says in the book of Revelation, I'd rather you be hot or cold. But since you're lukewarm, I will spew you out of my mouth, or vomit you out of my mouth. And, the people that are really cold, that don't know the Lord at all, no pretense of knowing the Lord, who are, just know they're not Christians. And they're not Christians and they know it, and they are usually appreciative. In fact, there's an interview with an atheist I watched, and I've also read an article he wrote. This atheist wrote an article about Christians, and basically he said, if you're a Christian and you don't share your faith, you're a hypocrite. He says that, you think, this is an atheist talking, you think that I'm going to a place called hell, and you won't even tell me about it. That doesn't make sense. In fact, your Bible says you're supposed to do it. It's a great interview and a great article that this guy did.
Where could someone look at that or get a copy of that if they wanted to read it for themselves?
I believe I posted a link, or not the whole article, to a website that I run, and it's called Alabama Evangelism. And basically, the easiest way to get to it is go to www.jasperharvest.org and then go to the links and look for Alabama Evangelism. You can also just send a letter to our house requesting, and I'll burn a copy of that interview and send it to you. I can do that. I don't know any other way you can get it. But the actual interview with the atheist from an evangelist, it was really interesting to watch too, but it's very sobering to see an atheist have a better understanding of the scripture when it comes to witnessing than most believers kind of.
Was this the interview that Daryl had done with the atheist, or was it Ray?
Daryl did the interview with the atheist. Originally, the atheist wrote a letter at his website about this topic, in which somebody from the Great News Network found it, started talking to the guy, and then Daryl called the guy and asked him if he'd do an interview with him.
And just to remind our listeners, Daryl is Daryl Rundis of the Great News Network that called in and talked with you and Richard a month or so ago.
About April 8th, I think it was.
Right.
But, in fact, if you would like to know how to become a complete Christian, they have a resource available on their website, thegreatnewsnetwork.com. I'm sorry, thegreatnews.com, that they're selling. It's based on interviews and research and studies he did with hundreds or thousands of Christians. Definitely hundreds. It might have been thousands, but I don't want to exaggerate too much. But we're at Doodah Day. Why do we go to Doodah Day? Because we know where there's people, there's sinners, right? So we went because we knew there'd be sinners there.
Yes.
And we went to share the gospel. That was our goal. Our purpose, our goal was to go share the gospel with these people. So we got together that morning. We prayed, tried to refocus ourselves on the day. We had a kind of a rough start. We got out there. We had to walk a little bit. It was a little bit of inconvenience. But compared to the fate of the ungodly, it really wasn't that inconvenient after all. So we get out there, and I'm going to try and hold back the first hour. I'm going to watch our 2-year-old while y'all go out and witness, pass out tracts. I'm going to try and take pictures, but as soon as y'all walk away, I can't find you. It's like y'all are invisible to me, so I didn't get a whole lot of pictures of y'all, but you did have your sister come in and take a few pictures for us, so we can show people that you can really hand out tracts and share the gospel with people in these large settings, and nobody actually pull out a machete and cut your head off. It's not going to happen. I'd like to encourage anybody to show me the stones to mark the spot where somebody got stoned to death in the United States in the last 10 years for sharing their faith. It don't happen.
Well, and using some of the tracts that we get from livingwaters.com, which is, again, Ray and Kurt's website, they are fun to give out, because the pink and blue optical illusion tracks, it's an optical illusion. It's just this little trick. And I did have one, and I always ask the parents, I've got this little trick, this little illusion. Can I show your son or your daughter or your kids? Because some parents are not very fond of strangers walking up and talking to their kids. So I asked this one mom if I could do it, and she said, "What is it for?" I said, "Well, it's an illusion. It's just something fun." Okay. And then, and again, our 8-year-old was with us, and then I went, and we're just walking around. Again, ton of people out there, and I walk up to a family that's sitting in the middle of the field on a blanket eating lunch. And again, the same thing. Hey, I've got this trick that I use for showing kids. Do you mind if I talk to your children? And they're like, "No, go ahead." So I start doing it, and the mom and the dad are looking, going, "Oh my goodness, really? How'd you do that? How'd you do that? What's the trick?" So I gave a set to each of the 3 kids, and I looked at the mom and said, "Here, do you want one?" And she said, "No, we'll just use theirs." So they're fun to give out. Now, there are many different kind of tracks to give out. Not Way of the Master is not the only one that has them, but those are the ones that we use because they're easy, they're fun, and as Ray says, non-believers will chase after you asking for more so they can give to their friends.
They do. When I was in Seattle, one of the guys I was with, who's from, he goes to the university, some college in Mississippi, up near the Jackson area, whichever one that one is, Mississippi State or the University of Mississippi. I don't know what colleges or all that jazz. But some kids ran up to him and said, "I want some more of those big money things." And they're like huge $1,000 bills and $100 bills, which you could actually, probably sleep in. Some of them are. And he was getting them out, and I said, these guys aren't with us. Are they believers? He said, "No." I shared the gospel with them, but they're not believers, but they love these. They come get them, go give them out to other people. So he had non-believers giving out the gospel message to other non-believers.
So you've got unbelievers doing kingdom work just because they're fun.
That's okay. I mean, one day we turned, you and I were at a place, Taco Bell. We turned as far as I know, a non-believer into an open-air preacher. Mm-hmm. Gave him one of the Everything Men Knows About Women tracts. This little booklet has everything that men has learned about women. And I give these guys, I said, "Hey, you're going to need this. It has everything we understand and know about women over thousands of years." And basically it's blank. But on the last page it says, and men don't know much about men either. And then it goes into the gospel. Mm-hmm. And I gave it to this guy, and this guy looked at it, he laughed, and this other guy looked at it and said, "Some of these pages are blank." And they go, "You idiot, they're all blank."
No, he said that.
Yeah, I didn't say that, okay. No. I don't call people idiots.
Okay.
But this guy said, "You idiot, they're all blank." Except for that last one. And then the guy started reading it. So he read the gospel.
Out loud in the middle of the Taco Bell.
Yeah, everybody in the Taco Bell heard the gospel. Mm-hmm. So that was great. That was the first time it ever happened. It's happened a couple times since then, but that was the first time. Mm-hmm. Now, I do know also somebody else started doing that one time with me and Richard, and they stopped at the adultery one. So I figured that was her sin. And because that's the one that convicted her, and she stopped reading it then, out loud anyway. But we were at Doodah Day sharing the gospel. I saw you going out. I got some pictures of you and giving out tracts and things. And I stayed with the baby for a little while. And we took turns with the older kids. Walker was not in the mood to share the gospel that day. But there's other issues there. But
and he's our 11-year-old.
Yeah. And Richard and Misty, they went out and they gave out tracts. Misty's had a goal and Richard had a goal, and they both exceeded their goals, and that was great.
I believe we all exceeded our goal that day.
Except for me. But that's okay. But they all exceeded their goals, and that was great. I think all in all, we ended up giving out 200 tracts or more, which means 200 people had the gospel of Jesus Christ put in their hands. Mm-hmm. And somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 people heard the gospel verbally. Mm-hmm. So that was another good thing. But usually, it was just a good day.
It was.
And it was fun. We had a great time. And it wasn't a chore. And it was good. Mm-hmm. But let's take a little break, and let's see if we can, in just a minute, we'll take a little break, listen to another clip. But right now, let's see, we talked about the basic training course. We talked about Doodah Day.
Tell them about Friday night when you went for the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, the Friday night we went to the Da Vinci Code. And some of you thinking, I can't believe you saw that movie. Well, if you know me, you know I didn't see that movie. Let's play a clip and let you think about what I was doing there then.
My friend, I stand in judgment now and feel that you're to blame somehow. On earth I walked with you day by day, and never did you point the way. You knew the Lord in truth and glory, but never did you tell the story. My knowledge then was very dim. You could have led me safe to Him. Though we lived together here on earth, you never told me of the second birth. And now I stand this day condemned, because you failed to mention Him. You taught me many things, that's true. I called you friend and trusted you. But I learn now that it's too late, and you could have kept me from this fate. We walked by day and taught by night, and yet you showed me not the light. You let me live and love and die. You knew I'd never live on high. Yes, I called you friend in life, and trusted you through joy and strife. And yet, on coming to this dreadful end, I can't...
I'd forgotten I'd done that one. No, recorded, not wrote it. I don't know who wrote it. I think it's one of those anonymous things. But about brings tears to my eyes thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the Friday night, we did not go to see the Da Vinci Code. We went out to witness. And we had Da Vinci tracks. Basically had $10,000 like a traveler's check type thing with the Mona Lisa on front and a gospel presentation on the back. Go figure. And it also sent them to a website, the $10,000 off. It's $10,000offer.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them, you go to this website, take a little test. You pass the test, you'll win $10,000, which they would. But unfortunately, the test is to see if they're a good person. And since no one is good, no, not one, none is righteous, none seek after God, of course they're going to fail that one. So the guy's money's safe, whoever does that website. But we went out to give it. The first place we went to was a summit. And I had Richard, Misty, that's my other co-host, his wife. Had my oldest, Walker, my middle, James, Matthew, and my wife stayed at home with James. And we went out to the summit first. We gave out some tracks there. It's kind of rough going. It didn't go as well as I was hoping there. Not because just the people weren't there that I was expecting. But the first people we tried to give tracks out to, they said, "Are you with the protesters?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not protesting." And I'm not protesting the movie. I think, well, I was going to say the movie's great. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's great that people are opening up to talk about the things of God because of the movie. And so I'm not suggesting anybody go see the movie. Now, I did think about buying a ticket and going inside and giving everybody one of the tracks inside the theater. But I don't know, just I changed my mind on that one. But we stood outside, and I did give out some tracks to them. They took a couple. Richard tried to give it out to the rest of that group I talked to, but most of them weren't taking it. And we had a little bit of, we gave some tracks out, and it worked. And had to run, we ended up running and taking some of our tracks back because we were all carrying a handful of tracks. And since we didn't need that many, we went and took some back to the car. And I ended up going into the Bruno shopping center there. I used the bathroom, and I took, I think my oldest used the bathroom too. We come back out, and we're sitting there, and I look at these two bugs and said, I ought to go put one over there. It just kind of came to me, but I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then some kids walked up, jumped in one, and played around with it, and I said, I guess I should have. And then Richard goes and puts it in the other one. I said, well, at least somebody's obeying the Lord today, not me. But we're walking away from there, and run into a group of kids. So I start talking to them. I give them the tracks out, and I just start talking to them. And I end up sharing the gospel with them. And one of them goes, do you believe this Da Vinci thing? And he kind of tore it up a little bit. And I said, no, I don't believe anything in that book or movie, whatever. But I'm using it as an opportunity to share the gospel with people. And he said, okay. And he was a Christian. And so he was not going to see the movie. But I shared the gospel with him and his friends there. And, of course, encouraged them to share the gospel with other people, too. And not everybody in his group was a Christian. And but we talked about that, and I do encourage everybody to examine themselves, and so I ended up sharing the gospel with some people there, giving out some tracks. Then we headed over to the Rave Theater in Patton Creek, over near the Galleria in Hoover. And that went a lot better as far as the people just hanging around. So I went up and just said, hey, have you seen the Da Vinci Code yet? Yes. Well, I'm giving these out to everybody that's seen it. No, I'm giving it out to everybody that hasn't seen it. I'm not going to see it, and I'm also giving it out to people that's not going to see it. It doesn't matter. I'm giving it out to anybody basically there because it's still a gospel tract. That's the importance of it. So we give out a few there, and I ended up sharing the gospel with a couple people there too. I had this one group of kids I went up to and started talking to them and gave them the tracts, was sharing the gospel with them, and I said, tell you what, and I heard somebody say to start a thing, they have this name 10, get 20, name 10 of the 10 Commandments, get $20. So I said, y'all give me you give me the 10 Commandments in order, and I'll give you $20. And they go, I think a couple try. I think I had one person, they called somebody over and they tried, and just nobody was doing real good. And then somebody else comes out, they holler for this lady to come over there, and she comes over there, and she goes, oh, okay, no problem. And she starts singing a song. She had learned a song to memorize the 10 Commandments. She's going through 1, 2, and I'm going, I'm about to give away $20 here. 3, 4. She gets to the 5th one, honor your father and mother, halfway there, and then she loses it. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. I didn't want to get $20 out for this. I would. I mean, stick by your word if it hurts or not.
Yeah, but the kids wanted her to succeed, didn't they?
Yes, my kids want her to succeed. And since they know the 10 Commandments in order, they were giving her hints. And I said, this is your college money, kids. Y'all, it's good to be helpful, but this is your college money you're spending here, okay? And the other thing I did do before she came over there, since they couldn't get them, I said, I'll tell you what. How about this? I'll give you $100 if you can prove to me you've kept one of the 10 Commandments. Oh, yeah, I've never killed anybody. I said, well, let me go through them. There may be another one, too. So let's go through them. And it turns out none of them kept it, or none of them were able to convince me they kept one, especially when James said, if you break one, you're guilty of all. So that worked out pretty good, too. And so we shared the gospel at the movie theaters, and we shared the gospel at Doodah Day. And that's going into the world and preaching the gospel. Sometimes as you're going about in the world, you can preach the gospel too. Do you remember what happened last week here in Jasper? We were this week in Jasper? Sure you do. You remember we came in, we were just looking around.
Oh, you mean what happened with you and I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was thinking about an event. We had come out Tuesday, several hours early to get some things accomplished before our new evangelism class started. And people, my husband is so bold. We are just out driving around. We had no agenda, no time schedule of anything that we were doing until much later that evening. And there was a large group of older kids at a gas station.
In Curry.
And I would say there were probably 20-plus kids, and they must have all ridden separately because there was about that many cars, if not more, at the end of this lot at a gas station. And we just drive by and look. And Franklin says, turn around, let's go preach. Okay, so we turn around and it was just us. None of the kids were with us, so we hop out of the van, load up our pockets with tracts, and we head over to this group of kids who were just standing around. Apparently school was out. Either they graduated or whatever, but they were just hanging out, trying to plan what they were going to do for the day.
And we taught them, didn't we? Just hang out in a large crowd when an evangelist drives by, didn't we?
And Franklin walks up and just starts passing out these $1 million to these high school kids. They start freaking out. Oh, give me one, give me one, give me one. Like we said earlier, non-believers will want these things because they're so fun. So they were just, oh, here, here, here. And everybody was taking one. And there was just a couple of kids standing closest to us. And so you just started up a conversation with two of them. It was kind of a back and forth. You know, at one time, one of them would seem interested, and then he would kind of drift off, and the other would seem interested.
We started about 7 or 8 of them around and started sharing the gospel because one of the kids, Jake, I said, you consider yourself to be a good person? He said, yeah. You know, mind if I ask you a couple questions, see if that's true? Yeah, go ahead.
You were also engaging the friends that were
to
there
keep
saying,
them there.
Hey guys, is Jake a good person? Have you ever told a lie? Has Jake ever told a lie?
And they said no.
So you were engaging.
But he had to admit the truth, didn't he?
You were engaging them to keep the crowd, but also to make sure that they stayed around to hear the gospel as well.
Yes. And so we did share the gospel with them. And really towards the end, it was just Larry and Jake. Mm-hmm. Larry was agnostic, and I asked him if he had a Christian background. He said he had tried it. And I said, so at one time you knew the Lord? And he said, well, I thought I did. And I'm like, okay, I got some stuff for you. You mind if I give you some things? And I gave him a scientific facts of the Bible little thing I have. And God in His providence had allowed me to see you reading it, or I wouldn't have known we had one for sure, and I'd give him something else. But since I remember seeing you read it earlier in the day, I knew we had one in the van somewhere. So you found it for me, and I went and gave it to him, because it proves the Bible is more than just a book.
Yes.
You know, the Bible said the earth was round. Now, I know the church at one time said it was flat, but that's the church. Church can be wrong. Word of God is not.
Amen.
It said the Bible says the world is round. Isaiah, I think it was, said sits upon the circle of the earth, on the sphere of the earth. And there's other things in the Bible, in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, not just prophecies, but also there's little scientific nuggets that stuck in there that science discovers hundreds and thousands of years later. And the Bible, you can get back to the Bible and say, well, God said it here. And we just now figured it out now. So that's just pretty interesting. And I do want to maybe do one more clip, and then Ginger, you got something you want to share with everybody?
Well, I just also want to point out having the booklet, Scientific Facts of the Bible, and having Save Yourself Some Pain, or just various witnessing tools, keep them on you at all times, folks. It is amazing. I have them in my wallet. So every time I go to a drugstore, to a grocery store, to wherever, and I have to pay for something, I can just whip out a gospel tract. Franklin keeps them in his wallet. If you have back pockets, and this is a pretty interesting trick. We got this, I believe, from Ray and Kurt. Use the $1 million or any of the dollar bill tracts. We stick them in our back pockets, and people will come up and tap you on the shoulder. And some folks are very alarmed. Ma'am, your money's about to fall out of your pocket. I'm like, you know what? I do that on purpose, and for every person that tells me that, I give a reward. Here's your reward. So for their honesty, they get rewarded with the gospel tract. They think they're getting money, but they're getting something much more valuable.
Yeah, they're getting something that will be priceless in a couple hundred years. Their very own souls.
So keep these, whatever your witnessing tool of choice is, gospel tracts, if you carry the little pocket-sized Bibles, whatever you use, keep them on you, keep them handy, keep them within arm's reach. We have a desk at our front door that we keep tracts in. So when we have people come up to the door, if we don't have time to share the gospel with them, if they're in a hurry, if we've got a screaming child, we can just say, here, read this.
Because if you prepare yourself, God will bring people to you.
Absolutely.
And we'll make those opportunities open. So we'll just take another one at random here and see what we got.
Pastors convention at this Atlanta thing. All these youth pastors came. Well, I went down there because my speaking agency was there. So a couple of ladies that booked my events, we went out and had dinner. We're having dinner right across from the event. I begin to witness to the waiter, okay? He's busy as all get out because these youth pastors been there for 3 days, all this stuff. He's just working hard. We start talking. He stops everything, begins to listen. We ask questions. He's got answers. He's got questions. We're going at it for about 20 minutes. All of a sudden I asked him, I said, let me ask you a question. You've been here for 3 days. There's a big youth pastor convention. You've been serving these people? He said, yeah. I said, how many of those youth pastors have ever taken the time to share with you about Jesus Christ in these last 3 days? This waiter looked at me and said, I have never had anybody in all of my years of waiting ever take the time to share with me Jesus Christ. I've been serving other people. Young people, that's called lukewarm. You don't get extra credit in heaven because you're a youth pastor. Okay? You get credit in heaven because you serve the Lord Jesus Christ wherever you go. Is that correct? He doesn't allow you to come to a Joshua conference, allow you to come to a youth pastor's conference, and keep Jesus Christ to yourself. That's what the lukewarm church does. And he says, I will spew you out of my mouth. A violent eruption.
And talking about being prepared, just one of our lessons in the basic training course is words of encouragement. And I'm not going to read it, but this guy, just 3 weeks into the course, he was at the laundry, and the person is a Vietnamese lady who, I think she's a Buddhist, the husband Jewish or something, and the son's Catholic or whatever. And he's like, I wonder, how do I share the gospel with her? Should I share the gospel with her? And she's just sitting there talking, and she looks at him and says, which church do you believe? And he's like, I guess if you prepare yourself, the Lord will make them. I had a Muslim guy begging. He just led me right into sharing the gospel. He picked me up on the airport coming back from Seattle, the first evangelism boot camp I went to. And, okay, I was expecting you to pick me up, and it was a little bit late, and you were a little bit sleepy, so I had to catch a cab. And I was greatly upset because I wanted to take my own car anyway. But what ended up happening was I said, well, maybe God's doing this for a reason, and he did. The Muslim cab driver drew the gospel out of me. I did want to share it, but once I realized that he didn't speak English, at least not very well, I was going to not do it. But then he started asking me questions. What do you do for a living? And at that point, I'm like, and I started talking about the counseling that I do. And then he goes into, who do you work for? And I work for the Lord. You work for your dad? No, for the Lord. And then I told the counseling thing. It just ended up going all the way through the gospel. Because there is a key for the Muslims. And you can study thousands of websites, or you can just know this little key for the Muslims, which you'll learn in the basic training course. And you want to talk about something, Ginger?
Well, I do. Franklin has been talking about for years sharing the gospel with who, why, who we share it with, in season and out of season, just things like that. He's been doing it for years. And a couple years ago, my mom died. It's been almost 2 years now. Next month will be 2 years. And for years, I had questioned her salvation. But as she got sick, I now know without a doubt that my mom was a believer. And she was in the hospital, and we knew that she was about to die. And I didn't want him to, but Franklin brought my stepkids up to see him. And I just started thinking about many things, and this is an article that I wrote that's posted on one of our websites. And I just wanted to read it today to encourage people on why to share their faith. And it's called, Why Are We to Share the Gospel? Last year, when my mother got sick, my husband brought my 2 stepchildren to see her and say goodbye. They were visibly upset. They loved their cookie very much. I explained that they should not be upset, that they would see her again someday, since we know her to be a Christian, and Walker and Matthew are as well. Franklin used this as a great opportunity to explain why it is so important to share the gospel with those we love. He said that if we love them, we should share the gospel with them so that we can see them again in heaven and they too can be with Jesus. This seemed to comfort them a great deal. However, it also got me thinking that if we share the gospel with those we love, what about the woman at the grocery store, or the man sitting next to us at work, or our neighbor down the street from us? The Bible tells us to love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. Therefore, by this we should love our neighbors and want to share the gospel with them. We love them, and as I have already stated, we share the gospel with those we love so they can be with Jesus and we can see them in heaven, right? Okay, our neighbors. But what about the woman at the grocery store or the man at work? Author J.I. Packard, in his book Evangelism and the Sovereignty of God, says, quote, that any fellow human being whom you meet is in need is your neighbor. God has put him there so that you may help him, and your business is to show yourself neighbor to him by doing all that you can to meet his need, whatever it may be. He goes on to say, again quoting, and that principle applies to all forms of need, spiritual, no less material, so that when we find ourselves in contact with men and women who are without Christ and so face spiritual death, we are to look on them as our neighbors in the sense. And again, I was quoting from his book. We can surmise from this that we are to share the gospel with everyone, not just our friends and family or just co-workers and cashiers, but with everyone we meet. After all, isn't that what God commanded us?
Well, I believe it is what he commanded us.
I believe it is too.
You know, that command, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. And which comes with a promise too, because lo, behold, I'm with you to the end of the age, Jesus said. You know, we talk about that because our pastor at SMI, he says it's not just go as in, you know, go specifically into the world, but it's also as you're going about in the world too. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's 100% correct. You know, we went to Doodah Day. That was a go. We went to, we're going to go to City Stages in June. That's a go. We went to the Da Vinci Code. That's a go.
But part of our daily life is I'm a substitute teacher at our kids' school. And as part of that, it's a Christian school up in Birmingham. During the Bible time, we go over the 10 Commandments, and I pass out tracts to my kids. And the teachers know I do it. All the teachers know I do it. I'll leave copies of the tracts for the teachers. Mm-hmm. So yes, we go into the world by going to these events, but also as we go about our daily lives.
Yeah, it's an as we go too.
Yes.
Because we did not go specifically taught those kids in Curry last Tuesday.
No.
but as we were going, it came about.
Yes.
And one of the biggest I can think about as we go is we went to Visionland last summer, and it'd been about April, May-ish time period. And we were there to have fun with the kids. Didn't have any tracks on me, didn't have nothing. And I really just started using tracks and stuff. There's a guy there that we rent a locker from. We normally don't spend the money, but I spend the money. This guy's name was Lloyd. My dad's name was Lloyd. His name is spelled with 2 L's. My dad's name was spelled with 2 L's. So I said, hey. So we made a little relationship there. And I do believe in relationship evangelism. I just don't think it takes 20 years to develop a relationship. But so we go about the day. We're leaving that day. I go give him the key back to the locker. And I'm walking away, and the Lord says, share the gospel. I don't have a track. I didn't say give him a track anyway. I said, share the gospel. Yeah, but he's working. Yeah, but he's going to hell too. Go share the gospel. And he didn't say the going to hell part. I just had that in. And I fought the Lord almost all the way to the gate, which is about 40, 50 yards away. And I knew once I got the gate, the pressure would leave, but I'd still be disobedient. And I gave in. I surrendered, and I went back, and I shared the gospel with them. Somebody came in, interrupted in between. I let him wait on them, and I led him to the Lord that day. And he prayed to receive Christ that day.
That's awesome.
And I'm glad I didn't have a track. So if I had a track, I took the easy way out with him. But the Lord wanted him saved, just like he wants everybody saved.
That's right.
And but that day was the day he was coming to the Lord. And he sent me there to tell them about Jesus. Because our job isn't to save people. You know, if it was up to me to save people, I'd probably be scared to death, even more than I am now. My job is to warn. Ezekiel says that we would be like watchmen sounding the alarm. If they choose to ignore it, it's on their head. If we choose to warn them, their blood is on our hands. That's why Paul said, I have not failed to preach the whole counsel of God to every creature that he came in contact with, and I'm free of the blood of all men. If we don't give the whole counsel, sin, judgment, righteousness, and wrath, then we are not free of their blood. And we'll just leave you with that thought. www.jasperharvest.com. And just, if you want to learn how to share your faith, check us out. Check out thewayofthemaster.com. Check out thegreatnews.com. Or just give us a call, 205-808-5490, and we'll help you out any way we can. And we'll just say God bless y'all and go.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Let me tell you something. Walked into a church the other day in Dallas, Texas. Walked in and all there were video games, foosball, pool tables. Okay? Let me tell you something. If you want to play video games, stay home and play video games. Stay home and play video games. Since when did we ever need a video game to draw people to the Lord Jesus Christ? If that cross isn't good enough, nothing's good enough.